you ever wondered what truly separates those who seem to effortlessly navigate life? Landing the jobs, building these incredible relationships, influencing decisions from those of us who sometimes feel like we're just missing something.
Hmm.
It's not always about raw intelligence or, that outward charisma or even just pure luck. What if it's something else? Something far more potent, yet surprisingly, often overlooked and kind of underdeveloped.
Yeah, that's a powerful question.
Imagine stepping into any room and instinctively sensing the hidden currents, what everyone is really feeling, where the real power dynamic lies, and knowing exactly what to say, or maybe more importantly, what not to say, to spark genuine connection, build that solid trust, and exert real influence.
It's an intriguing premise, isn't it? And it really highlights a critical challenge we face today. I mean, we're living in an era that's absolutely saturated with information, data, facts, figures, all at our fingertips.
Right? Overload.
Exactly. Yet, paradoxically, we often find ourselves starving for genuine human connection. In an age increasingly dominated by AI, automation, algorithm-driven everything, the one thing machines just cannot authentically replicate is our inherent human ability to deeply understand, truly empathize, and thoughtfully respond to other human beings.
That human element.
Precisely. And yet, for most of us, we frequently fumble through really crucial conversations. We misread intentions, sometimes tragically, and we miss out on critical opportunities. We're often left wondering why we feel so out of sync in our most important relationships, or maybe within our teams at work.
That profound skill, that almost invisible currency of success, is what we call social intelligence. And here's the reality. If you're not actively cultivating it, consciously developing it, you're likely already, well, falling behind.
And it's absolutely crucial right from the start to clarify a distinction that many people often confuse. Social intelligence is not the same thing as emotional intelligence.
Okay, that's important. Break that down.
Well, they're closely related, definitely, but they have different focal points. Emotional intelligence, the kind popularized by Daniel Goleman, is primarily inward-focused. It's about recognizing, knowing, and managing your own emotions, understanding your triggers, your motivations, the whole intricate landscape of your internal feelings.
Knowing yourself first.
Exactly. Social intelligence, on the other hand, is entirely external. It's all about how you perceive, interpret, and respond to others. It's that almost uncanny ability to recognize the emotions and intentions lurking beneath people's words, their silences, even those subtle shifts in body language.
Reading the room.
Reading the room, precisely. It's the capacity to walk into a new social setting and instantly gauge the atmosphere, to instinctively know when it's the right time to speak up with a contribution, and when it's better to just listen intently, when to gently push an idea forward, and when, maybe wisely, to just pause. This distinction is exactly what makes some individuals seem like magnetic leaders, inspiring profound loyalty and collaboration, while others, maybe despite having immense intellect or technical skills, consistently struggle with disengaged teams or just remain curiously invisible in the crowd.
And here's what I find really empowering about all this. Most people don't realize that social intelligence isn't some fixed trait you're either born with or, it's not some mystical gift bestowed on a lucky few.
Right, it's not destiny.
Not at all. It's a profound skill. And like any other skill, whether it's learning guitar or mastering chess, it can be learned, it can be rigorously trained, and it can genuinely be mastered. This deep dive isn't about giving you surface-level tricks or, vague feel-good advice. This is about peeling back the layers and getting into the real mechanics of social mastery.
So our mission today, really, is to unpack the real-world applications of social intelligence. We want to explore actionable techniques that don't just help you, survive socially, but actually enable you to truly thrive in every single interaction you have. You'll gain practical frameworks for navigating everything from, say, casual conversations at a networking event to those high-stakes boardroom meetings. The goal is to fundamentally improve your most important personal relationships, help you excel in critical job interviews, succeed in complex negotiations, and even handle the most challenging, emotionally charged confrontations with grace and effectiveness.
Be warned, though, because once you begin actively developing your social intelligence, you really will start seeing the world through an entirely new lens. It's quite a shift. You'll begin to instinctively pick up on what's not being said in conversations. You'll start understanding how often people might be speaking from a place of insecurity, maybe from fear, or simply from deeply ingrained habit.
Yeah, the subtext becomes clear.
Exactly. You'll start to see, with sometimes startling clarity, how deeply miscommunication derails relationships, how subtle manipulation can sometimes hide behind the most charming smiles, and how trust, while incredibly fragile, is ultimately invaluable. It's the very foundation of meaningful connection.
It really is.
You'll begin to perceive the intricate, often invisible emotional ecosystem operating underneath every single interaction, and you'll know, or start to know, exactly how to navigate it with newfound confidence and purpose. So let's explore this hidden world together. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's kick things off. We often think of ourselves as rational beings, right? Driven by logic. But to truly grasp the power of social intelligence, we first need to internalize this profound scientific reality. Human beings are, by our very nature, deeply, profoundly social creatures.
Absolutely.
It's not just a nice philosophical idea, it's fundamental to our biological wiring. Our brains aren't just designed to crunch numbers or solve abstract problems. They are, in their very design, specifically crafted to connect with other people.
That's such a critical starting point. And what's truly astonishing here is the sheer magnitude of social interactions that just permeate our daily lives, often without us even consciously realizing it.
Right, it's constant.
It is. Think about it. Every single conversation you have, every brief exchange with a colleague, a family member, even a stranger on the street, demands that your brain constantly process this immense array of subtle signals.
So much data.
So much data. We're talking about everything from fleeting facial expressions and the nuanced shifts in tone of voice to the intricate subtleties of body language and even the unspoken context that conveys meaning far beyond the literal words themselves. Our brain's astonishing ability to decode these incredibly complex signals and to do it quickly and accurately is really a testament to how deeply we are embedded in a social context. Without this highly refined capability, our relationships, personal or professional, would be incredibly challenging, maybe even impossible. It's like the invisible operating system of human connection.
So if our brains are wired this way specifically for connection, what does this actually mean for us as we, navigate our daily lives? How does this intricate biological system allow us to connect, and ultimately, how does it shape our entire understanding of the world and the people in it?
Well, if we connect this to the much bigger picture, our social brains didn't just, pop up overnight. They are, in fact, the remarkable result of millions of years of continuous evolution.
Right, way back.
Way back. Early humans, much like all other social animals, absolutely needed to form strong, cohesive bonds with others simply to survive and thrive. Whether they were in small, tightly knit tribes or larger, more complex communities, survival consistently depended on deep cooperation, mutual support, and the ability to read each other, to predict behavior and avoid threats.
Safety in numbers, but also understanding those numbers.
Exactly. This fundamental innate drive for social connection became so deeply ingrained that it literally shaped the very structure and function of our brain. It led to the gradual development of specialized neural systems specifically designed to help us navigate the incredibly complex web of social interactions we experience. This evolutionary adaptation was truly crucial for our species' survival, and it laid the profound foundation for the sophisticated social intelligence that we possess today. It's why social isolation can feel physically painful. Our brains literally interpret it as a kind of threat.
And this isn't just abstract theory, is it? We're talking about specific, tangible parts of the brain that are dedicated to this social wiring. For instance, let's look at mirror neurons. I've heard them called the empathy engine, which is a great term.
It is a great term.
These are specialized cells that have this remarkable ability to fire both when we perform an action ourselves and when we merely observe someone else performing that same action. Like seeing someone yawn and then feeling yourself yawn too, right? Or wincing when you see someone stub their toe.
Exactly, that mirroring effect.
This unique neural mechanism is precisely what allows us to empathize, to literally simulate what others feel and understand their emotions on a much deeper, almost visceral level. This neural mirroring forms the very basis for that powerful sense of shared experience that so fundamentally underpins all human relationships. So what's the practical takeaway here? When you're trying to connect with someone, your mirror neurons are working overtime. By consciously opening yourself to their experience, watching their expressions, noticing their posture, you're engaging the system, literally setting the stage for deeper understanding.
Building right on that, we have the prefrontal cortex, PFC, which we can really think of as the brain's social decision maker. It's the CEO of social interaction, maybe.
Ah, I like that, the CEO.
Yeah. This area, right at the very front of the brain, is directly responsible for our higher level thinking, our complex decision-making processes, and our capacity for self-regulation in social settings. It's the part of our brain that allows us to weigh the potential social consequences of our actions, to consciously choose behaviors that align with our values, and to effectively regulate our impulses.
So it stops us from putting our foot in it too often.
Hopefully. For instance, when you meet someone new, your PFC isn't just passively analyzing the words they're saying, it's also rapidly interpreting their body language, assessing their facial expressions, decoding the tone of their voice. All of this happens in split seconds, helping you assess the emotional context of the interaction and decide precisely how to respond. The PFC also helps us maintain self-control in challenging social situations, like knowing when to speak up with a crucial insight, or, maybe more importantly, when to hold back an inappropriate comment. The practical application. When you feel that urge to blurt something out or react impulsively in a social setting, your PFC is your brake pedal. Consciously engaging it allows you to pause, consider the social landscape, and choose a more effective and often less regrettable response. It's where your values meet your actions in a social context.
Then there's the amygdala, often called the emotional signal center. This sounds like the quick reaction part.
That's a good way to think of it.
Yeah.
It's the brain's rapid emotional alarm system, primarily responsible for detecting threats in our environment and triggering appropriate emotional responses, whether that's a jolt of fear when facing danger or, pure joy when seeing a loved one. But this role extends far beyond basic survival instincts. In social situations, the amygdala rapidly helps us process the emotional signals of others. When we see someone smiling and speaking warmly, our amygdala signals, okay, this person is approachable, friendly. Conversely, if someone is frowning or their arms are crossed, the amygdala might quickly alert us to potential hostility or discomfort, essentially flagging a potential social threat.
Like a quick gut check.
Exactly, a gut check. These rapid, almost instantaneous emotional responses are crucial for navigating social interactions efficiently, allowing us to react quickly to the emotional landscape around us. What's also fascinating is that the amygdala is involved in social learning. It helps us remember emotional experiences tied to specific people or situations, continually refining our social learning process.
So we learned who feels safe and who doesn't.
Pretty much. As we accumulate more social experiences, the amygdala helps us refine our ability to understand and respond to the emotions of others, making us more attuned to their needs and feelings. For you, the listener, this means recognizing that initial gut feeling about a person or situation often comes from your amygdala's rapid assessment. Understanding this allows you to give that first impression a second, more rational look through your PFC, rather than letting an instinctual emotional reaction dictate your entire interaction.
That's really useful. Okay, and there was one more, the insula.
Yes, and deep within the brain we find the insula, which serves as a powerful gateway to empathy. This region processes bodily sensations and emotions, and crucially, it helps us feel the emotional states of others, almost as if their feelings are resonating within our own bodies.
So it's not just understanding, it's actually feeling with them.
Yeah, that's the key difference. When we observe someone in distress or suffering, the insula activates, allowing us to feel a genuine sense of shared emotion, that knot in your stomach when a friend shares bad news, or the lightness you feel when they're overjoyed. This forms the very foundation of compassionate behavior and directly helps us assess the emotional consequences of our actions, playing a significant role in moral decision-making. Wow. In essence, the insula is critical to our ability to connect with others on a deeply emotional level, enabling us to recognize and respond appropriately to the emotional states of those around us, thereby promoting empathy and understanding. But the practical application is this. When you find yourself struggling to connect emotionally with someone, consciously tune into your own bodily sensations. Are you feeling closed off? Tense? By noticing and maybe consciously relaxing your own physical state, you can often open up your insula, allowing you to more deeply process and resonate with the emotional experience of the person in front of you. It literally helps you tune into feelings and react in ways that are truly fitting for the moment.
Okay, so knowing how our brains are wired for connection, with mirror neurons and the insula firing away, this naturally leads us to a central concept, empathy. It's often described simply as, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. But how does this biological wiring actually translate into the profound way we connect with others day to day?
That's a great question, because the common understanding of empathy often falls a bit short. This raises an important question. Is empathy just feeling sorry for someone?
Right, like sympathy.
Exactly. And the answer is a resounding no. Empathy is a far more complex dynamic process involving both profound emotional and cognitive components. It is, without a doubt, the cornerstone of our social intelligence. It empowers us to truly put ourselves in someone else's shoes, to genuinely feel what they're feeling, and to respond in a way that is not only supportive but deeply compassionate.
So it's deeper than just pity.
Much deeper. For example, when a friend shares their grief after a loss, empathy allows us to feel their sadness with them, maybe bringing tears to our own eyes. And when they experience joy after achieving a long-held dream, we truly celebrate alongside them, feeling their exhilaration. It is, in many ways, the invisible thread that binds us to others, allowing us to relate to their emotions and experiences on a visceral level, fostering a profound sense of shared humanity.
It certainly sounds like a powerful thread, that connection piece. And the source material highlights that it's not a one-size-fits-all concept, right? It's actually quite varied. And understanding those distinctions seems crucial for applying it effectively.
Precisely. Empathy comes in various forms and is a skill that's shaped by both our innate biology and our lived experiences. We can generally divide it into two primary components that work in tandem, each playing a vital role.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's emotional empathy, sometimes called affective empathy. This is the raw capacity to directly feel another person's emotions. When someone is experiencing sadness, we might find ourselves feeling sadness as well, almost like a resonance within our own emotional system.
Like catching feelings.
Kind of, yeah. It's about sensing and resonating with our emotional states, which allows us to deeply bond and offer immediate, visceral comfort. This is the more automatic, almost contagious part of empathy. Imagine witnessing a child cry and feeling a pang in your own chest. That's emotional empathy.
Got it. And the second type?
Then there's cognitive empathy, also known as perspective taking. This is the ability to understand what someone else is going through, to grasp their thoughts, beliefs, and emotional state, even if we don't necessarily feel the same emotions ourselves.
So, more intellectual.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It involves stepping back mentally to recognize their emotional state without necessarily becoming overwhelmed by it. This allows us to empathize with someone, even if we haven't personally experienced the exact same situation they're in, like understanding the profound feeling of a specific type of loss, say losing a pet, even if we haven't personally faced that specific type of loss ourselves, by drawing on our broader understanding of grief.
That makes sense.
Both are essential. Emotional empathy for bonding and that visceral connection, and cognitive empathy for broader understanding, navigating complex social situations, and offering appropriate, thoughtful responses. Balancing them allows responses that are both compassionate and effective.
That distinction really helps clarify things. It makes me think about those brain regions we just discussed, the insula, the mirror neurons. It seems like these two types of empathy are deeply rooted in our neurological architecture, right?
Yes, absolutely. Empathy has deep roots in the brain, reinforcing that it's not just a philosophical concept, but a core brain function, deeply tied to our survival and social thriving. The anterior insula, which we mentioned earlier, is central to both emotional and cognitive empathy, effectively mirroring emotional states so we can resonate with them. It allows us to feel what others feel.
Okay.
The anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, helps us process these empathetic emotions and, crucially, regulate our responses. This is vital for preventing emotional burnout or compassion fatigue by helping us manage the intensity of shared emotion.
So we don't get overwhelmed.
Exactly. And of course, the mirror neuron system provides the fundamental basis for our astonishing ability to understand others' emotions and intentions by literally simulating them internally. These brain regions don't work in isolation. They form a complex network that creates our capacity for empathy, allowing us to move from simply observing to truly understanding and connecting.
So, if our brains are wired for empathy, and we have these different types, what does this all mean for how we actually act in the world? How does this profound capacity for empathy translate into our social behavior and impact our daily interactions?
Well, the impact of empathy on social behavior is truly profound. It's the invisible force that guides our actions and influences our relationships in incredibly subtle yet powerful ways. For one, it directly drives pro-social behaviors.
Meaning helping others.
Exactly. When we empathize, we are far more likely to offer support, help, and assistance, which naturally fosters connection and understanding within our communities, workplaces, and families. This isn't just a moral or ethical choice. It's often an instinctual response embedded in our social brains that has deep evolutionary roots for group cohesion. Secondly, it's absolutely key in conflict resolution. Understanding others' emotions and perspectives, their underlying needs, their pain points, their unexpressed fears, helps us de-escalate tense situations and find common ground. It allows us to navigate disagreements with compassion and respect instead of defensiveness or aggression. It shifts the dynamic from me versus you to us versus the problem.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And critically, it's fundamental for building and maintaining relationships. Empathy is truly the glue that holds friendships, partnerships, and familial bonds together. It signals genuine care, validates experiences, and fosters deep trust and unwavering loyalty over the long term. Without it, relationships tend to feel transactional or shallow.
But are there limits to the superpower? Can empathy ever become too much, or are there situations where it's particularly challenging to access or even, I don't know, detrimental?
That's a really important question, because there certainly are limits and challenges to empathy. One significant hurdle is empathic distress or compassion fatigue.
I've heard of that, especially in caring professions.
Precisely. This occurs when we become emotionally overwhelmed by the sheer pain or distress of others, feeling their suffering so intensely that it leads to our own emotional exhaustion. This is particularly common in caregivers, healthcare professionals, social workers, anyone in professions requiring constant emotional engagement. This can indeed lead to burnout, cynicism, and even a diminished capacity to empathize effectively over time.
So it backfires.
It can. That's why self-care and emotional regulation are so incredibly important here, to maintain your own well-being so you can continue to show up for others without depleting yourself entirely. Another challenge is the existence of empathy gaps.
Meaning we don't connect with everyone?
Right. It can be genuinely difficult to fully empathize with people from vastly different backgrounds, cultures, or life experiences than our own. Our brains naturally gravitate towards what's familiar. In such cases, cognitive empathy, actively seeking to intellectually understand someone's perspective, consciously putting yourself in their shoes, even if you can't emotionally resonate, becomes incredibly invaluable. It requires deliberate effort to bridge those gaps and challenge our own assumptions and biases.
So, given these challenges, what does this all mean for cultivating empathy? It sounds like it's clearly a skill we can actively develop and not something fixed. How do we actually get better at it?
Absolutely. Empathy, like any other vital skill, can definitely be cultivated and strengthened over time through deliberate practice. It genuinely requires both conscious effort and consistent mindfulness. It's not something that just happens naturally all the time. It's often a deliberate effort to tune into the emotions of others and respond with genuine care and understanding.
Okay, so what are some practical ways?
Well, one paramount way to cultivate empathy is through active listening. This means truly listening without judgment or distraction, creating a safe, open space for others to express themselves fully. It's not about waiting for your turn to speak, but really absorbing their message.
Tuning in completely.
Exactly. By paying attention to their tone, their body language, and subtle emotional cues, you're not just hearing words, you're hearing their heart, maybe. And this deepens your empathetic responses. Secondly, perspective taking is crucial. This involves making a conscious effort to see the world through another person's eyes, diligently trying to understand their thoughts, feelings, and experiences, even if we don't personally share them. Ask yourself, if I were in their shoes with their background and challenges, how would I feel right now?
Putting yourself in their place, literally.
Literally. Thirdly, regular self-reflection and self-awareness are vital. By regularly reflecting on our own emotional responses, noticing our biases, our triggers, our own discomfort, and recognizing when we might be emotionally disconnected from others, we can become more attuned to their needs. This internal check helps us identify and clear our own emotional clutter before trying to connect with another.
Knowing your own stuff first.
Yes. We also need active emotional recognition, which means intentionally paying attention to emotions in ourselves and others. Observe facial expressions, body language, and vocal tone, not just as background noise, but as vital data points. What emotion is really being communicated here? And practicing mindfulness is key. Being fully present without judgment helps us tune into others' emotions and respond with kindness rather than reactivity. It's about being anchored in the present moment, fully engaged.
What about actions?
Good point. Volunteering or engaging in acts of service can expose us to diverse experiences and challenges, forcing us out of our comfort zones and fostering a powerful sense of shared humanity with people we might not otherwise encounter. And finally, self-compassion is essential. Treating ourselves with kindness and understanding creates the emotional space needed to offer genuine empathy to others. It's difficult to extend compassion externally if we don't practice it internally. It all starts within.
So we've talked about our internal wiring for connection and the crucial role of empathy. But how do these insights translate into the actual messy, beautiful dance of human interaction? Often we focus intently on the words people speak, But here's where it gets truly fascinating, and you touched on this earlier. Research consistently shows that a staggering amount, maybe up to 93% of all human communication, is nonverbal.
Yeah, that number always blows people away.
It's huge. This silent language includes everything from the most subtle facial expressions and complex body language to our posture and the often unconscious nuances in our tone of voice.
That statistic is always a revelation, isn't it? What's truly fascinating here is how these nonverbal signals operate on a level far deeper than words. They often reveal much more about our true feelings, intentions, and even our underlying emotional states than we consciously express verbally.
So what we show speaks louder than what we say.
Often, yes. Our brains are incredibly highly tuned to pick up on these cues, from the slightest tilt of a head to the subtle way someone stands or gestures. Understanding these cues isn't just a fascinating academic exercise. It's absolutely critical for building strong, authentic relationships in every aspect of our lives. Because when our words don't match our body language, people implicitly trust the body language more. It feels more honest, somehow.
So what does this all mean for us as we try to understand and maybe master this invisible language? Let's break down the different types of this silent communication. First, facial expressions. Our faces are incredibly expressive, right? Capable of conveying a whole range of emotions, from pure joy to intense anger, often in milliseconds.
Absolutely. Psychologist Paul Ekman's groundbreaking research universally demonstrated that basic emotions like happiness, anger, fear, sadness, surprise, and disgust are recognized across cultures based on facial expressions alone.
Wow, universal.
Largely, yes. A genuine Duchenne smile, for instance, is distinct because it involves the activation of muscles around both the mouth and the eyes, creating those crinkly crow's feet, unlike a forced or polite smile that only involves the mouth. It's a subtle but powerful signal of true warmth. You can often spot the difference if you look closely.
Okay, so eyes smiling too. Got it. What about the rest of the body?
Well, building on that, we have body language and posture, which convey a wealth of information, often unconsciously. Think about it.
Well,
Open body language, standing tall, shoulders back, arms uncrossed, maybe palms slightly open signals confidence, warmth, and approachability. Exactly. In contrast, closed body language, crossed arms, hunched shoulders, avoiding eye contact, perhaps even a slight turning away, can indicate discomfort, defensiveness, anxiety, or a lack of interest. Even subtle cues like leaning in during a conversation suggest deep engagement and interest, while leaning away can signal boredom, disinterest, or a desire to distance oneself. Your posture is often the first thing someone reads about your state before you even speak.
And gestures, of course. Our hands are constantly moving, emphasizing words or conveying meaning.
Some gestures are pretty universal, like a thumbs up for approval in many cultures, while others are highly culturally specific and can lead to major misunderstandings if misinterpreted.
Right. Need to be careful there.
Definitely. The frequency and intensity of these gestures can also reveal deep emotional states. Nervousness might manifest as fidgeting or repetitive movements, whereas confidence is often shown through more deliberate, expansive movements. Think of a speaker who uses their hands to paint a picture versus one who keeps them rigidly still. Big difference in perceived energy.
Okay. And eye contact. That feels like a big one.
It's undoubtedly one of the most powerful forms of nonverbal communication, often called the windows to the soul for a reason. A prolonged gaze can communicate deep interest, affection, or even dominance, while consistently avoiding eye contact might suggest shyness, dishonesty, discomfort, or even a lack of respect in some contexts.
But didn't you mention cultural differences?
Yes, and this raises an important question. Cultural differences play a huge role here. In some Western cultures, consistent direct eye contact is viewed as a sign of confidence and trustworthiness. However, in many East Asian, Middle Eastern, or indigenous cultures, too much direct eye contact can be perceived as confrontational, aggressive, or disrespectful. Navigating these cultural nuances with humility is absolutely essential for effective cross-cultural communication. Assuming your way is the right way is a recipe for trouble.
Good point. Finally, there's tone of voice and paralanguage. The way we say something is as vitally important, maybe even more important, than the actual words we choose.
Absolutely. Pitch, the rate of our speech, volume, rhythm, timbre, all fall under paralanguage, conveying rich emotional nuances. For example, speaking in a high-pitched, fast tone might indicate excitement, nervousness, or anxiety, while a slow, deep, resonant tone can suggest calmness, authority, or thoughtfulness.
So sarcasm relies entirely on tone, right?
Exactly. The very same sentence can convey entirely different messages based solely on its tone. Think about the vast difference between uttering, "Oh, sure, I'm fine," with a sarcastic, strained tone versus genuine sincerity. Your tone often carries the true emotional payload of the message.
It's incredible to consider how our brains process all of this, isn't it? This silent stream of information.
It is. And this all connects beautifully back to the brain, precisely reinforcing what we discussed earlier. The amygdala, our brain's emotional alarm system, rapidly assesses whether incoming nonverbal signals are positive or negative, triggering an almost instantaneous emotional response that guides our reaction. A sudden loud tone might trigger your amygdala to perceive a threat, even if the words aren't hostile. The prefrontal cortex, our social decision maker, then evaluates the broader social situation and helps us regulate our responses based on these constantly incoming cues. It allows you to pause and choose a thoughtful response instead of an emotional reaction. And the insula, our gateway to empathy, helps us deeply resonate with others' emotions by processing their nonverbal expressions, which is central to our capacity for empathy. So these seemingly silent cues are being processed by a highly sophisticated neural network, allowing us to build a rich picture of another person's internal state, often unconsciously.
It's truly incredible how our brains are wired for this complex dance. So, how exactly does consciously understanding and utilizing this silent language help us build trust and rapport between people? It feels like the absolute foundation for all strong connections.
You're absolutely right. Nonverbal communication plays an absolutely critical role in building trust and rapport. A warm, genuine smile, that Duchenne smile we mentioned, or an open, relaxed posture can immediately signal trustworthiness, warmth, and approachability to another person. It's an instant green light.
Makes sense.
One fascinating aspect as we delve deeper is the concept of mirroring or matching. This involves subconsciously adopting another person's body language, gestures, or even vocal rhythms. When we do this naturally, and not in a forced or obvious way, it signals, often without either party realizing it, we're on the same wavelength, which naturally builds rapport and trust.
Like you're in sync.
Exactly. You're signaling a deep sense of empathy and understanding, an unspoken agreement. Also, and this is crucial, when our nonverbal cues consistently align with our words, it creates a powerful sense of coherence and authenticity. If someone tells you they're thrilled to see you, but their arms are crossed, their shoulders are hunched, and they consistently avoid eye contact, the verbal message feels incredibly insincere, and trust is instantly undermined. The nonverbal always speaks louder, and incongruence is a rapid trust killer.
So, what does this all mean for improving our own skills in both reading and effectively utilizing this silent language? How can we become more fluent in this unspoken dialogue? It seems like a skill worth honing.
Definitely. To truly master this art, start by significantly increasing your own awareness. Pay close attention to your body language first. Before you even open your mouth, ask yourself, am I conveying openness, warmth, and genuine interest through my posture, facial expressions, and gestures? Am I maintaining appropriate eye contact that signals attentiveness without being confrontational?
Checking in with yourself.
Exactly. Becoming more mindful of your own nonverbal cues allows you to consciously control how others perceive you and helps you engage more authentically in social interactions. Then actively observe others. Instead of just hearing their words, notice their facial expressions, their posture, their shifts in tone, and genuinely try to interpret their underlying emotions and intentions based on these cues. This will help you become far more attuned to others' feelings, making it easier to respond empathetically and appropriately.
So, observe and interpret.
Right. And crucially, practice active listening, which means not just hearing the words, but truly paying attention to the full spectrum of their communication, their tone, body language, and facial expressions, allowing you to respond more thoughtfully and with greater empathy. Think of it as tuning into multiple channels simultaneously, not just the audio track.
That's a great metaphor. But here's where it gets really interesting, according to the sources. There's a deeper art to this, beyond just observation and mirroring, called attunement. It sounds like it's the profound ability to emotionally and physically sync with others in a way that fosters genuine connection and resonance, almost like a dance.
Precisely. This isn't just about mimicry or superficial copying. That would feel manipulative and often backfire. Attunement is about tapping into the emotional current of a conversation, allowing your own body, face, and energy to reflect a genuine sense of presence and understanding.
Going deeper than just matching posture.
Much deeper. This kind of nuanced mirroring creates a neurological feedback loop known as limbic resonance, where both parties begin to feel safer, deeply understood, and profoundly connected. Think of limbic resonance like two perfectly tuned instruments. When one vibrates, the other naturally starts to hum and sync.
Wow.
In human terms, your genuine attunement signals safety and understanding so deeply that it literally downregulates the other person's threat responses, allowing their prefrontal cortex to come online and engage rationally. You're not just mirroring, you're creating a shared neural rhythm that fosters profound safety and connection.
Can you give an example?
Sure. When someone is grieving and speaks in a soft, trembling voice, attunement means you might instinctively lower your own voice, soften your expression, and create a quiet, honoring space for their pain without immediately needing to fill the silence with solutions or advice. You're matching their emotional frequency. But this raises an important question. Attunement requires genuine empathy, not manipulation. People have an incredibly keen instinct for incongruence. They can tell if your words and demeanor are out of sync. Nothing undermines trust faster than when someone's attempts to attune feel artificial or manipulative. True attunement is an authentic extension of your empathy, a response from the heart.
That brings up a critical point again, cultural differences in nonverbal cues. This seems like it could be a significant pitfall to mastering this silent language, creating unintentional offense or misunderstanding, even with the best intentions.
This is perhaps the most nuanced and challenging element of mastering nonverbal communication. Assuming universal meaning for all gestures or expressions is a significant pitfall and one that can lead to profound miscommunications.
Like the eye contact example.
Exactly. Direct eye contact is respectful in some cultures, confrontational in others. The OK sign we use in the West can be highly offensive in Brazil. Even within a single culture, individuals vary wildly due to their upbringing, unique personality, emotional conditioning, and even neurological wiring. For example, neurodivergent individuals might avoid eye contact, not out of disrespect, but because it's genuinely overstimulating or uncomfortable for them.
So we can't make assumptions.
Never. Mastering nonverbal communication, therefore, requires immense humility and curiosity. It calls for suspending snap judgments and instead asking internally, what might this signal mean in the specific context of this person's experience or this cultural background? It's about learning to read patterns over time rather than isolating single gestures. If someone always speaks with their arms crossed, that might simply be their default posture due to comfort, not a sign of defensiveness. But if they suddenly cross their arms mid-conversation when emotions are running high, that shift could indicate a change in emotional state.
Context is everything.
Context and patterns. Cultural fluency becomes absolutely essential in our increasingly globalized world. By expanding our awareness of how nonverbal cues differ across human experience, we reduce assumptions, deepen our empathy, and create a more inclusive and respectful way of relating. It's an ongoing process of learning and adapting, really.
Fascinating. Okay, so we've explored our brain's social wiring, the depth of empathy, the power of nonverbal cues. We've touched on emotional intelligence, or EI, earlier as distinct from social intelligence. Now, let's really dive into its core components and understand how mastering our inner landscape, our own emotions, is truly fundamental to our social success, because how we manage ourselves often dictates how effectively we interact with others, right?
You're absolutely right. Emotional intelligence, often referred to as EQ, refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions effectively. Crucially, it also extends to the ability to recognize, understand, and maybe even influence the emotions of others.
Influence, okay.
Yeah. It was popularized by psychologist Daniel Goleman back in the mid-1990s and has since become widely recognized as a key factor in both personal and professional success. In many ways, emotional intelligence serves as a kind of internal social radar, helping us pick up on subtle emotional signals in ourselves and others, which is vital for navigating the complex web of emotions that underlie most human behavior. It's about knowing your internal weather system so you can better navigate everyone else's.
That's a great way to put it. And what's particularly insightful are the 5 core components that Goleman outlined. These really make up emotional intelligence, providing a practical framework for self-mastery. Can we walk through those?
Definitely. They provide a great map.
First, self-awareness. This is the fundamental ability to recognize and understand your own emotions, and also their significant impact on your thoughts and behaviors.
The starting point for everything else.
Exactly. It's more than just knowing you're angry. It's understanding why you're angry, what triggered it, and how that anger might influence your next words or actions. When you are self-aware, you can accurately assess how you feel and, more importantly, why you feel that way, which leads to much more thoughtful and intentional responses in any given situation. It's like peeling back the layers to recognize that your "I'm fine" might actually be masking something deeper and tuning into those subtle internal signals before they erupt.
Building right on that, the second component is self-regulation. This refers to the critical ability to control and effectively manage your emotions, especially in stressful or challenging situations.
The ability to not freak out.
Basically, it's absolutely essential for maintaining your emotional balance, staying calm and composed under pressure, and making deliberate, well-considered decisions rather than reacting impulsively to your emotions. It's not about suppressing emotions, remember, but choosing how and when to express them constructively. Imagine feeling a surge of frustration in a meeting. Self-regulation allows you to take a strategic deep breath, pause, and choose a constructive response instead of a reactive outburst.
Okay. Third component.
Third is motivation. This involves setting and diligently working toward goals that deeply align with your values and desires. Emotionally intelligent individuals tend to be more inherently motivated, remarkably resilient in the face of setbacks, and deeply committed to their objectives.
So they stick with things.
They do. They persevere through obstacles with a consistently positive attitude and strong sense of drive. It's the inner fuel that keeps you moving forward, even when the path is challenging, because your goals are deeply connected to who you are, not just some external pressure.
Then there's empathy, which we've talked quite a bit about already.
Yes, the fourth component. It's the profound ability to understand and share the feelings of others. As we've established, it's absolutely crucial for building deep rapport, fostering unwavering trust, and deepening relationships by connecting on a truly emotional level. People with high empathy are skilled at listening attentively, recognizing emotional cues, and responding in a compassionate and constructive manner, which makes them exceptional colleagues, friends, and leaders. It's the outward-facing piece of EI.
And finally, the fifth component is social skills. This sounds like where it all comes together in practice.
Exactly. This is the practical application of emotional intelligence. It encompasses effective communication, the art of building meaningful relationships, and the capacity for collaborative teamwork. It's about actively using your emotional awareness and empathy to skillfully navigate interactions, effectively resolve conflicts, and influence others in a consistently positive way. It's where your inner wisdom meets the external world and makes a difference.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, emotional intelligence seems pivotal in shaping how we connect, manage conflicts, build relationships. It's like the operating system for our social lives.
It really is. It allows us to tune into the emotional undercurrents of social dynamics, essentially providing us with a deeper understanding of the motivations, concerns, and needs of others. It's that internal radar that guides our social interactions, allowing us to respond with precision and grace rather than just guesswork or clumsy reactions.
So let's zero in on emotional regulation specifically, because you mentioned it's often misunderstood as simply suppressing emotions, which seems counterintuitive to genuine connection. What's the real truth about it? How does it actually work?
That's a really important question, and it's a common misconception that needs clearing up. Emotional regulation is not about suppressing emotions or pretending that they don't exist. In fact, trying to suppress emotions often leads to them resurfacing later, sometimes explosively, like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It just pops up eventually, often at the worst time.
Right, the pressure builds.
Exactly. Rather, emotional regulation is the conscious process of managing our emotional responses so that they are appropriate to the specific context and consistently aligned with our overarching goals. It involves understanding and intelligently channeling emotions, choosing precisely how and when to express them in a way that serves you and your relationships.
So choosing your response instead of just reacting.
Precisely. This could manifest as taking a strategic deep breath before speaking in a moment of intense frustration, or consciously delaying a response when you feel emotionally triggered, giving yourself a few minutes to cool down before engaging. It's about expressing disappointment without resorting to blame, or asserting personal boundaries with calm confidence instead of passive aggression or an outburst. Emotional regulation is also actively cultivated through practical strategies like reframing negative thoughts, engaging in physical movement to release tension, and practicing mindfulness to ground ourselves in the present moment, allowing us to observe our emotions without being swept away by them.
That makes so much sense. How does this help us when conflict inevitably arises? Because let's be honest, it's incredibly hard to stay calm when you're in a heated conflict. Our instincts scream to react, to fight back.
You're absolutely right. It's one of the most challenging aspects, but also one of the most crucial. In emotionally charged situations, our natural impulse is often to defend ourselves, lash out, shut down, or retreat. These reactions are instinctive, rooted in our body's ancient stress response system, the fight-or-flight response.
Yeah, feels automatic sometimes.
It does. However, unregulated emotional reactions almost invariably escalate conflict rather than resolving it. Regulation allows us to stay calm under immense pressure, to think clearly even when tension is high, and to respond thoughtfully rather than simply react impulsively. Imagine a heated disagreement with a friend or colleague. Instead of automatically matching their raised voice, which is a common but unhelpful reaction, you can pause, take a deep breath, and choose a different path.
Like,
Maybe lowering your own tone, verbally naming the emotion in the room. I can see this is frustrating for both of us. Or expressing a sincere desire for common ground. When even one person in a conflict maintains emotional regulation, it can profoundly soothe the overall tension and invite the other person into a calmer, more productive dialogue. This de-escalation can literally preserve relationships, repair ruptures, and build mutual respect over time. It gives you agency in the conversation, rather than being a pawn to your feelings.
so what does this all mean for sitting with discomfort? That seems to be a significant part of any difficult conversation or conflict. We often want to just fix or avoid uncomfortable feelings immediately, get away from them.
Yeah, we're wired for comfort. But a powerful, often hidden aspect of emotional regulation is the development of emotional tolerance. That is, the profound capacity to sit with uncomfortable feelings, like the awkwardness of confrontation, the vulnerability of asking for what we need, the sadness of witnessing someone else's pain, even just boredom or uncertainty, without needing to immediately fix, escape, or avoid them.
Just allowing them to be there.
Exactly. If we are unable to tolerate these challenging emotions, we may end up avoiding important conversations altogether, offering superficial responses, or detaching emotionally, right when we need to be deeply present. Emotional tolerance allows us to stay present with discomfort long enough to move through it, rather than simply trying to go around it.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. If a team member offers criticism of your work in a meeting, the initial wave of embarrassment or defensiveness can be strong. But with emotional tolerance, you can sit with that discomfort for a moment, remind yourself it's temporary, maybe take a breath, and choose to respond constructively, perhaps by thanking them for the feedback and expressing your willingness to understand and improve. This ultimately builds emotional resilience and strengthens your capacity for authentic interaction. It's about building a bigger emotional container for what life throws at you.
It sounds like regulation makes us better at empathy, too, creating space for deeper connection. When we're calm internally, we can be more present for others, right? Less wrapped up in our own stuff.
It absolutely enhances empathic presence. When our internal emotional world is chaotic or overwhelming, when we're consumed by our own anxiety, anger, or stress, it becomes incredibly difficult to fully engage with another person's reality. Emotional regulation creates essential internal space for truly listening, for genuine curiosity, and for deep empathy.
Makes sense.
For example, if we enter a conversation feeling anxious and self-absorbed, preoccupied with our own thoughts, we might easily miss subtle cues indicating that the other person is upset or struggling. We might interpret their responses through the lens of our own stress rather than accurately hearing them. But when you are calm, regulated, and grounded, you can be fully present. You can attune yourself to the rhythms of another person's speech, the subtle shifts in their tone, and truly grasp the emotions behind their words. This kind of presence is a profound gift. It sends the clear message, I see you, I'm here with you, I care. In this way, regulation becomes the bedrock of genuine empathy and connection.
This also sounds critical in situations with clear power dynamics, where emotional control from the person in charge can really dictate the outcome and set the tone for an entire team or family.
This raises an important question. And yes, emotional regulation becomes even more important when you hold a position of authority. A manager snapping at an employee in frustration, for example, doesn't just impact that one interaction. It can shatter morale, create a climate of fear, and stifle creativity for days or weeks across the entire team.
Yeah, the ripple effect.
Huge ripple effect. A parent exploding in anger can cause deep and lasting emotional wounds in a child. Conversely, leaders who consistently regulate their emotions, model maturity, self-control, and respect, thereby creating a culture of psychological safety within their teams or families. This means remaining steady and composed even under provocation, offering feedback constructively without shaming, and leading with calm clarity during a crisis.
And in negotiations.
In high-stakes negotiations, emotional regulation helps maintain strategic thinking and emotional detachment, allowing you to advocate for your needs without aggression and to listen actively even when the stakes are incredibly high.
Whew.
Navigating power responsibly requires us to be deeply aware of our emotional impacts and to regulate in a way that consistently fosters equity, dignity, and trust. Your emotional state as a leader is incredibly contagious.
So what does this all mean for us? Can we truly train our brains for this level of emotional mastery, or is it something only a few naturally possess? Is it learnable?
Yes, absolutely. The good news is that emotional regulation is an entirely trainable skill, thanks to the brain's remarkable neuroplasticity.
Ah, neuroplasticity. Good old brain flexibility.
Exactly. This means that with consistent, intentional practice, we can actually rewire our responses and build new, healthier emotional habits. Techniques like mindfulness meditation, which trains us to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment journaling, which allows us to process emotions through reflection, deep breathing exercises, which calm the body's stress response by activating the parasympathetic nervous system, and body-based awareness practices are all powerful tools for cultivating regulation.
So actual practices we can do.
Yes, concrete practices. Over time, these practices actively strengthen the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for impulse control, decision-making, and emotional modulation, and they help quiet the amygdala, which governs fear and reactivity. You're literally building new neural pathways. With regular practice, we genuinely become less reactive, more centered, and more capable of maintaining emotional equilibrium in the face of stress. This neurological resilience directly enhances our social intelligence, allowing us to stay present, composed, and highly effective in all our interactions, even the challenging ones. It's like going to the emotional gym.
This is truly fascinating. Give us some real-world examples of how these principles play out in everyday life, making the abstract very concrete. How does regulation look in action?
Certainly. Consider a romantic relationship. Saying, "I feel hurt when you cancel plans without letting me know, because it makes me feel like my time isn't valued," is vastly more effective and constructive than the accusatory "you never respect my time." The first one expresses your own emotional experience without blaming, inviting understanding, and a problem-solving approach. The second just starts a fight.
Yeah, big difference.
Huge. In the workplace, imagine a leader receiving negative feedback from an employee. Their initial internal response might be defensiveness or annoyance. But if they can regulate that response, they might say, "Okay, I appreciate you being honest. I'd like to understand more about that specific situation so I can improve." This opens the door for productive dialogue, fostering trust rather than shutting it down.
Builds respect, too.
Absolutely. In family settings, a parent confronted with a teenager's anger might initially feel triggered, but with regulation, they can respond with curiosity. "Wow, it seems like something's really bothering you. Your voice is raised and you look upset. Want to talk about it?" Instead of just escalating the conflict. In every context, our ability to manage our internal emotional state fundamentally determines the quality of our communication and ultimately the strength and resilience of our relationships. It transforms potential emotional landmines into opportunities for deeper connection.
This sounds like the long-term rewards of emotional mastery are truly transformative, not just for individual interactions, but for our entire lives, our very sense of self and well-being.
They absolutely are. Mastering emotional regulation fundamentally reshapes the way we experience ourselves and others. With regulation, we become less beholden to emotional turbulence and more anchored in our core values. We respond to life with greater composure, wisdom, and compassion. Relationships become less reactive and more responsive, less fraught with drama and more deeply rooted in mutual understanding.
Sounds peaceful.
It can be. We begin to trust ourselves more profoundly, knowing that even when strong emotions arise, we can handle them with integrity and care without being swept away. This inner trust radiates outward, inviting others to feel safe, seen, and respected in our presence. Over time, emotional regulation becomes a quiet, steady strength, a foundational presence that influences and elevates every interaction we have, making us far more effective, influential, and genuinely connected human beings. It's an investment that pays dividends across your entire existence, really.
Okay, so we've explored our brain's social wiring, the depth of empathy, nonverbal cues, and the crucial skill of emotional regulation. Now let's tie all this together into the most direct form of social intelligence, communication itself. It's often described as the backbone of all human relationships, and it truly is. It's our primary tool to express ourselves, connect with others, and navigate that incredibly complex web of emotions and intentions that underpin our interactions. But it's far more nuanced and intricate than just simply speaking and listening, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's a critical point. What's fascinating here is just how profoundly effective communication determines success in nearly every single aspect of life. Think about it. Without it, misunderstandings, profound frustration, crippling isolation, and even outright conflict are incredibly likely to occur, often resulting in unnecessary trauma or a complete breakdown in connection.
Yeah, things fall apart quickly without it.
They really do. At its core, communication is a dynamic, two-way process. It involves not only the transmission of information, what you say, but equally important, its accurate reception and interpretation, what the other person hears and understands. It's a shared dance, not a monologue. What you intend isn't always what lands.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting, pulling together what we've discussed. We're not just talking about words alone. Communication is this powerful blend of words, tone, and body language. And the weight each carries might surprise people. Let's break that 93% down again. First, words. The choice of words is obviously essential, carrying both literal, denotative, and emotional connotative meanings. How we phrase something can profoundly influence whether it's interpreted positively, neutrally, or negatively. Consider the difference between "you made a mistake" and "there's an area for improvement here." Huge difference in feeling. The subtle nuances of language, your vocabulary, your phrasing, your use of metaphors are key to effective communication and can signal respect, blame, collaboration, or confrontation.
Then, tone of voice is a truly vital element that greatly impacts meaning, often overriding the words themselves. Tone refers to the emotional quality of our voice. Is it warm, cold, excited, or perhaps frustrated? It conveys our emotional state, our true intentions, and our level of engagement.
Like we talked about with sarcasm.
Exactly. When our tone is inconsistent with our actual words, it almost invariably leads to confusion, misunderstanding, or, worst of all, mistrust. If you say, "I'm fine," with a tight, clipped tone, the listener receives the message that you are decidedly not fine. Research highlights that tone accounts for about 38% of a message's impact, far outstripping words alone.
Wow, 38% just for tone. And then there's body language, perhaps the most powerful nonverbal aspect, encompassing all our physical gestures, movements, and postures. Our facial expressions, eye contact, and even the subtle distance we maintain from others all send potent, often unconscious messages.
And the big number here?
Research stunningly suggests 55% of all communication comes from body language, 38% from tone of voice, and only a mere 7% from the actual words used.
Only 7% for the words.
Isn't that incredible? It means your body language often communicates far more about your true feelings than your words ever could. It's your unspoken billboard, broadcasting your internal state to the world, whether you intended to or not.
Given these multifaceted elements, words, tone, body language, this raises an important question. How do we truly listen in a way that captures the full message, not just that tiny 7% of words? How do we become not just good speakers, but master receivers of information?
That's precisely why active listening is consistently highlighted as one of the most crucial components of effective communication. Many people mistakenly think communication is primarily about speaking, about getting their message out, crafting the perfect sentence. But listening is just as, if not more, important. It's the foundation of understanding. Without it, you're just talking at someone.
Absolutely. Active listening involves fully concentrating on the speaker, diligently understanding their entire message, verbal and nonverbal responding thoughtfully, and crucially, remembering what was said. It truly goes beyond just hearing words. It means paying close attention to their tone, their body language, their facial expressions, and their emotional state. It requires suspending judgment and being fully present, giving the speaker your undivided attention.
So putting your own agenda aside for a moment.
Completely. The techniques include paraphrasing, where you restate what the speaker has said in your own words to confirm understanding. Like, okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're feeling concerned about the deadline because of X and Y.
Shows you're tracking.
Exactly. Then there's summarizing, a brief recap of main points to ensure you've captured the essence. So to recap, your main points seem to be A, B, and C. Is that right? And finally, asking clarifying questions, which shows genuine engagement and a desire to understand more fully. Could you tell me more about what you mean by feeling overwhelmed? What does that look like for you? When we listen actively, we show profound respect, validate the other person's experience, and build deep trust. It tells them, you matter enough for me to truly hear you.
Now, let's turn our attention to the conversations everyone tends to dread. Difficult conversations. They're not inherently negative, maybe, but they are simply charged with emotion, uncertainty, and stakes that truly matter, whether it's giving tough feedback, setting a boundary, or addressing a conflict head-on.
Yeah, the ones we put off. What's fascinating here is that most people instinctively approach these moments with a fight-or-flight mindset, either charging in too aggressively, leading to confrontation, or avoiding them entirely, leading to festering resentment.
Neither sounds good.
No, neither approach works well long-term. Avoidance breeds resentment, and silence corrodes connection, while aggression often invites defensiveness and escalates tension. Navigating them effectively requires first acknowledging their inherent complexity, preparing yourself emotionally and mentally before stepping into them, and recognizing that success isn't just about being right, but fundamentally about preserving dignity, both yours and theirs. This raises an important question. What outcome do we really want from this conversation beyond just expressing our truth or venting? Clarity on this question grounds us and shifts the focus from merely unloading our feelings to fostering mutual understanding and finding a constructive path forward.
So, with that in mind, what does this all mean for how we frame these conversations and the tone we use? It sounds like those are absolutely critical for setting the stage successfully, maybe even before the difficult part starts.
You've hit on a core truth. What we say matters, but how we say it often matters far more, especially here. Tone is everything. An accusatory tone, "you never do X," can immediately turn a well-meaning observation into a personal attack, slamming the door shut on dialogue before it even begins.
Instantly defensive.
Instantly. Framing is the act of consciously shaping how we present what we need to say, ensuring it aligns with our true intention, like connection or problem solving, and respects the other person's emotional state. For example, instead of saying "you never listen to me," which blames and causes defensiveness, try "I feel unheard when we talk, and I'd love for us to find a way to understand each other better."
Much softer entry point.
Exactly. This powerful shift reframes the issue from blame to connection. It opens a door instead of building a wall. Our emotional tone also communicates deeply. If we approach with warmth, genuine curiosity, and humility, we actively create psychological safety, a state where both people feel emotionally secure enough to be truly real, allowing truth to surface without defensiveness. This is where the magic happens in difficult conversations, where real understanding can emerge.
This takes us to another incredibly powerful idea mentioned in the sources: listening as leadership. It completely shifts the dynamic of who's in charge in a tough conversation, making it less about asserting dominance or winning points and more about fostering connection and shared understanding.
Yes, absolutely. While we typically think of difficult conversations as moments where we must speak bravely and assertively, often our real power, our true influence, lies in listening. It's not passive. It's an active, courageous act.
Courageous to listen, how so?
Because it requires us to quiet our mental noise, the constant stream of rebuttals, defenses, justifications, and assumptions, long enough to truly receive the other person's experience, even if it's uncomfortable or critical of us. This kind of listening isn't about waiting for your turn to speak. It's about entering their emotional world with humility and openness. It's about saying, through your very presence, as much as your words, "You matter. Your view matters. I'm here and I'm listening." When someone feels truly heard, their defenses naturally lower, their pain softens, and a new possibility emerges: mutual understanding. Listening is leadership because it actively leads the conversation away from conflict and toward connection. It models respect, fosters empathy, and creates the emotional spaciousness needed for genuine resolution. It also helps us adjust our message in real time, as we might discover our intent was misunderstood in ways we couldn't have anticipated, saving us from charging down the wrong path based on faulty assumptions.
So, with all these tools for communication and connection, active listening, framing, managing tone, even leading through listening, what does this all mean for the art of influence? It sounds like it's about shaping outcomes with incredible subtlety and integrity, rather than force or manipulation, more like guiding than pushing.
That's the crucial distinction, yes. True influence isn't manipulation. It's not coercion. It's not dominating others through force of personality or argument. It's about creating environments where people feel truly seen, heard, and deeply understood, thereby enabling them to make choices that are aligned with their own best interests, which often conveniently coincide with yours.
Alignment, not force.
Exactly. This may seem paradoxical, but the essence of influence lies in alignment, not in force. The art of influencing others begins with a profound understanding of their needs, their desires, their fears, and their underlying motivations. It's about recognizing the internal dialogues that guide their decisions and then subtly offering them pathways that deeply resonate with their values and goals. Ethical influence always seeks mutual benefit. It's an exchange, a shared process, not a one-sided transaction. It's about helping someone see a choice as their own best choice.
This sounds like it requires a massive amount of trust, which must be built over time. You can't just walk in and instantly influence someone without that foundation, can you? It feels like that would just backfire.
It absolutely does require trust. At the very core of influence lies trust. People simply won't follow or be persuaded by someone they don't believe has their genuine best interests at heart. Therefore, the first and most important tool in the art of influence is authenticity.
Being real.
Being real, exactly. Authenticity is not just honesty, though that's part of it. It's being fundamentally consistent in your words, your actions, and your underlying intentions. It means showing up in the world with integrity, with a sense of wholeness, and without pretense. When others sense this profound integrity, they are far more likely to open themselves to your influence because they feel safe. Authenticity also requires showing vulnerability and admitting mistakes, which paradoxically deepens trust by creating a shared sense of humanity. It's a reciprocal process, not a one-way street, built through meaningful reciprocal relationships where both parties feel valued and respected.
That makes perfect sense. So with that foundation of trust and authenticity, what are some subtle persuasion techniques that can enhance this influence, always used ethically, of course? We want to guide, not manipulate. These feel like tools that could be misused.
That's a critical point. Ethics are paramount. When used skillfully and ethically, grounded in genuine respect, we can indeed leverage certain fundamental aspects of human psychology. First, reciprocity. People are inherently more likely to respond positively when they feel they've received something of value. This doesn't always mean a material gift. It can be something as simple as your time, your focused attention, a genuine compliment, or being the first to offer a concession in a negotiation. Offering something first creates a subtle, almost hardwired sense of obligation to reciprocate, opening a channel for goodwill. Imagine a negotiation where simply being the first to genuinely acknowledge the other party's core concern, even a minor one, shifts their entire posture from adversarial to cooperative.
Give first.
Exactly. Then there's social proof. People tend to follow the crowd, especially in uncertain situations. If they see others they trust or relate to adopting a certain viewpoint or action, they're more likely to consider it themselves. Subtly showing that others are already aligned with your perspective through examples, testimonials, or demonstrating collective agreement makes it easier for them to adopt your viewpoint. This taps into our innate desire to belong and to be right by observing what others deem acceptable or successful.
Safety in numbers again.
In a way, yes. Scarcity is another powerful principle. We tend to value things more when we perceive them as limited or unique. Highlighting the unique or timely nature of an opportunity or idea can tap into this psychological trigger, but this must be done genuinely, not by creating artificial urgency or false limitations. Think about how a leader might say, this project requires a specific blend of skills, and only a few people have the unique expertise to tackle this particular challenge right now. They're not fabricating urgency, but highlighting a genuine, valuable opportunity that, by its very nature, isn't endlessly available, subtly increasing the perceived value of participating.
Okay.
The principle of authority is also at play. People are more likely to be influenced by those they perceive as experts, credible sources, or legitimate leaders. This isn't about being bossy, but about building and demonstrating expertise. Positioning yourself as knowledgeable and experienced in the relevant area increases your ability to influence by building that perceived credibility and trustworthiness. Share your relevant experience, cite data, or bring in external expert opinions, show your work, essentially.
Demonstrate competence.
Precisely. Finally, consistency. Once people commit to something, even a small thing, they are more likely to follow through, especially if that commitment is public or aligns with their self-perception. Encouraging small initial commitments, whether it's a small agreement, a simple yes to a question, or a public statement of intention, subtly paves the way for greater agreement down the line. For instance, asking someone to agree to a small initial principle, do we agree safety is the top priority? Before proposing a larger solution,
Small yeses.
right. Each of these techniques, when used skillfully and ethically, enhances influence. But they must always be grounded in authenticity and a genuine desire for mutual benefit. Influence at its best is about helping others truly see the value of ideas and guiding them gently toward decisions that genuinely align with their best interests, all with empathy and profound respect for their autonomy. It's partnership, not pushing.
Okay, we've talked about connection, understanding, influence. But let's be realistic. Human interaction isn't always smooth sailing. Conflict happens. So let's unpack conflict. It's a natural, sometimes uncomfortable, but definitely inevitable part of human interaction, stemming from differing viewpoints, misunderstandings, or simply misaligned interests or needs. But the fascinating thing is, when approached with the right mindset and equipped with the right skills, conflict need not be destructive at all. In fact, it can be a powerful force for positive change, can it?
You're absolutely right. What's fascinating here is that conflict can actually be a powerful catalyst for profound growth, innovative solutions, and even deeper connection between people, strengthening relationships in the long run, if handled well.
If handled well, key phrase.
Exactly. The first crucial step in effective conflict resolution is understanding that it almost always arises from unmet needs or desires. When people's core needs, whether for respect, validation, control, autonomy, fairness, or understanding, are threatened, emotions flare, and these emotional responses often overshadow the logical or factual elements of the disagreement. It's rarely just about the issue at hand, like the dirty dishes in the sink.
Right, it's about what the dishes represent.
Precisely. It's almost always about how people feel about the issue, or how they feel they are being treated, or what fundamental need feels unmet. For example, a disagreement about who cleans the dishes might really be about a need for fairness or feeling undervalued or taken for granted. Until you address that underlying need, you're just arguing about plates.
So, if conflict is about unmet needs and feelings, what does this all mean for how we approach disagreements? It sounds like understanding the emotional undercurrent, the story beneath the story, is key, rather than just focusing on the surface level issue or who's factually right.
Yes, and it also raises an important question about differing perspectives. Two people can experience the exact same situation entirely differently based on their unique backgrounds, deeply held values, individual experiences, and their own unmet needs. Recognizing that everyone has a unique lens through which they view the world is absolutely vital to resolving conflict constructively.
My reality isn't your reality.
Exactly. This perspective taking allows us to approach disagreements with genuine curiosity, helping understand your view or what makes you say that,
Yeah.
rather than immediate judgment, you're wrong or that's ridiculous. The ultimate goal is not to win the argument or to simply assert who is right, but to create an outcome that respectfully acknowledges both parties' needs, genuinely respects their perspectives, and fosters mutual understanding, ultimately strengthening the relationship. It's about building a bigger picture together, one that incorporates both viewpoints.
This truly sounds like a great opportunity for growth, not just for the individuals involved, but for the relationship itself, transforming tension into connection, turning a breakdown into a breakthrough. What are some actionable strategies we can use to make that happen when conflict does arise?
Absolutely. There are several powerful strategies we can employ to transform conflict from destructive to constructive. First, active listening, which we've emphasized throughout this deep dive, is paramount, maybe even more so in conflict. It's about not just hearing the other person's words, but truly understanding the emotions, needs, and desires behind them, even if they're not explicitly stated. Being fully present, resisting the urge to interrupt, which is hard when you feel attacked, and showing genuine engagement through both verbal and nonverbal cues validates the other person's feelings, which alone can significantly de-escalate tension. Often, people in conflict just want to feel heard and understood before they can even begin to consider solutions.
Feeling heard lowers the temperature.
Instantly. Secondly, use I statements versus you statements. This is a game changer in conflict. Instead of saying you always interrupt me, which blames and causes defensiveness, try, I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted because I lose my train of thought and it makes me feel unheard. This expresses your own experience and opens a more open, non-confrontational dialogue, inviting empathy rather than resistance. It owns your feeling without attacking them.
Focus on your experience.
Yes. Third, reframing is a powerful technique. Take a negative or accusatory statement and present it in a more neutral, collaborative light. For example, instead of "you're being unreasonable and stubborn," try saying, "it seems like we have different priorities here, and I'd love to understand yours better. Let's try to understand each other's perspective more deeply." This shifts the focus from blame and labels to collaboration and problem solving.
Changes the energy.
Completely. Fourth, actively finding common ground. In almost any conflict, there are often shared values or goals that both parties care about, even if they disagree on the method. In a workplace conflict, both parties likely want the project to succeed or the team to function effectively. In a family disagreement, both likely want harmony or fairness. Emphasizing what both stand to gain or what you both agree on creates a foundational basis for resolution and shifts the conversation from opposition to shared purpose.
Start with agreement.
If you can find it, yes. And finally, seeking win-win solutions. Instead of assuming one person must compromise significantly and lose out, a win-lose, strive for a solution where both individuals feel their core needs have been met in a fair and balanced way, a win-win. This often requires creativity, open-mindedness, and genuine collaboration to find new avenues for satisfying both sides, often leading to more innovative and sustainable outcomes than a simple compromise where everyone feels a bit cheated. It's about expanding the pie, not just dividing it.
Okay, those are great strategies. But how does emotional regulation, which we covered earlier, play a role in all of this? Because let's be honest, it's incredibly hard to stay calm and use I statements when you're in a heated conflict. Our bodies instinctively prepare for fight or flight, not collaborative problem solving.
You're absolutely right. It is arguably one of the most challenging aspects of conflict resolution, but also the most crucial foundation for using any of those strategies effectively. Emotional regulation in conflict means recognizing and managing your own emotions so you respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. It's about conscious choice in the face of strong feelings.
So how do we do that in the heat of the moment?
First, cultivate self-awareness. Notice precisely when your emotions are rising. Those physical sensations like tension in your shoulders, a racing heart, maybe clenching your jaw, or feeling heat rise in your face. These are vital internal triggers that signal you're becoming emotionally activated, and catching them early is key. Acknowledge it. Okay, I'm feeling really angry right now.
Just noticing it helps.
It does. It creates a little space. Then practice the count, taking a pause. If you feel overwhelmed, your amygdala might be hijacking your rational brain. Take a deep breath, a slow inhale, even slower exhale. Count to 10. Or, if appropriate and possible, say, I need a minute, and step away briefly from the situation. This allows you to collect your thoughts, calm your nervous system, and approach the situation with a clearer mind, preventing you from saying or doing things you might later regret in the heat of the moment.
Buying yourself time.
Exactly. Another key is reframing your thoughts. Our emotional responses are often fueled by how we interpret the situation. If you immediately view conflict as a personal attack, they're trying to undermine me, you'll naturally be angry and defensive. Try to reframe it instead as a misunderstanding. Maybe they don't see the full picture. A difference in perspective, we just value different things here. Or a problem to solve together. How can we both get what we need? This shift in interpretation can dramatically shift your internal emotional state.
Change the story you tell yourself.
Precisely. Mindfulness practices, even just focusing on your breath for a few seconds, can also help significantly. These practices allow you to stay present, calm, and grounded even when the conversation becomes incredibly tense, helping you observe the emotional storm without being consumed by it. And finally, bring in empathy. When you genuinely try to empathize with the other person's feelings, acknowledging their pain or frustration, I can see you're really upset about this, you are far less likely to become defensive or reactive yourself. Recognizing their emotions and understanding their perspective allows you to respond with kindness, patience, and a desire for mutual understanding, even if you strongly disagree with their viewpoint.
See their humanity in the conflict.
Yes. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending you're not upset. It's about acknowledging them. Okay, I'm feeling defensive.
Yeah.
And consciously choosing a response that aligns with your values and your goals for the relationship and the situation. But I want to understand their point. By regulating our emotions during conflict, we maintain control over our contributions to the situation, ensuring the resolution is constructive, respectful, and truly collaborative, leading to stronger relationships on the other side. It's the key to turning conflict into connection. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay. We've truly taken a deep dive into the profound art and really the science of social intelligence today. We've unpacked everything from the intricate evolutionary wiring of our social brains and the dual nature of empathy to mastering the subtle nuances of nonverbal communication, understanding emotional intelligence and self-regulation, skillfully navigating those difficult conversations, and even ethically influencing those around us. It's a vast landscape we've covered.
Indeed. We've seen how actively developing these seemingly soft skills transforms you from someone who merely survives socially, maybe feeling awkward or misunderstood a lot of the time, to someone who truly thrives in every interaction. It's about unlocking your most effective, most influential self, becoming someone who can genuinely connect and be deeply respected, Regardless of whether you're naturally introverted or extroverted, driven by ambition or prone to anxiety, these skills are universally applicable.
That's right. Once you start down this path, once you begin to truly tune into this invisible current, you really will begin seeing the world differently. You'll instinctively pick up on what's not being said. You'll understand the intricate emotional ecosystem operating beneath every interaction, and you'll start to know exactly how to navigate it with newfound clarity and confidence. It's like gaining a kind of superpower for human connection.
It really is. This deep dive has fundamentally shown that social intelligence isn't just a nice-to-have in today's complex, interconnected world. It's an absolute must-have. It's the silent language that meticulously builds trust, the emotional radar that precisely guides understanding, and the subtle art of shaping outcomes with integrity and genuine human connection. It's arguably the ultimate differentiator in a world increasingly reliant on technology.
So what does all this mean for you listening right now? Here's a final provocative thought to maybe mull over. In a world increasingly shaped by algorithms, by digital interactions that often lack nuance, and by artificial intelligence that can mimic human conversation but never truly feel or understand, what does it truly mean for us as humans to deeply reinvest in our uniquely human capacity for authentic connection and nuanced understanding? How might mastering these soft skills, this invisible currency of true human interaction, actually become the ultimate hard skill for the future? Not just changing your individual interactions, but potentially fundamentally reshaping your sense of self and your purpose in connecting with others. The transformation starts now with awareness and practice, and once you see how powerful this can be, there's truly no going back.